Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create a low poly flame using the Blender Eevee engine. We will be mostly focusing on material authoring, but we will also delve a little into drivers, as well as graph editors. This tutorial is for beginners and intermediates, and I hope that you enjoy. Let's get started. Our first step is to create the particle system for our flame. First, we're going to set up our basic particle emitter. Move the cube to the side, as we will need it again soon, and create a new plane. Navigating to the particle tab while our plane is selected, we're going to create a new particle system. You may name this to something appropriate, such as flame. Change the lifetime to 15 and the lifetime randomness to 1. This is so that our particles disappear at different times, and we're not going to have a clean cutoff in our fire, which wouldn't look very good at all. Then, navigating to the render drop-down menu, we're going to change render as from halo to object. Doing this will change the contextual sub drop-down menus to object and extra. Next, check the object scale checkbox. Opening the object sub drop-down menu will allow us to select an object for our particle system. Select our cube. You should see now that our particle system is instancing our cube to each particle that is on screen, but they are not the right size for the effect. So, scrolling back up, we're going to change the scale to around 0.2 and change the scale randomness to around 0.5. It is important in Fire to make sure there is some sort of random element involved to sell the idea and look. Remember, imperfection is perfection, especially in nature. Now, if we hit the play button, you'll see that our particles just fall away after they are emitted. This is because their velocity is set to very low, and they are being affected by gravity. Now yes, fire is affected by gravity in the real world. Well, everything pretty much is. But to sell the look, we're going to have to make it so that our particles are not affected by gravity. So, navigating to the field weights drop-down menu, we're going to change the gravity value to 0. Then, to change the velocity of the particles, we're going to navigate even further back up to the velocity drop-down menu. There, we're going to set the normal velocity to around 2.2 meters per second. Then we're going to change the randomized value to around 0.23. We are also going to scale down our emitter object just so that the flame is more compact. Okay, that's great. Our particle system is pretty much complete at this point. So our next step is we're going to be setting up the material for our particles. Selecting our cube, we're going to create a new material. Name this flame or something appropriate. Delete the principled BSDF and replace it with an emission shader. Change the color value of the emission to an orange. The hex value of the color I used was FF6C21. Now we're going to create a fall off in the strength of the emission as the flames go up. In cycles, we'd be able to do this using a particle info node that affects each individual particle based on their life and the lifetime. But because we are working in Eevee, this node as of the 28th of March 2019 does not work. So we're going to have to use a mapping node to fake it. Create a geometry, mapping, gradient texture, and color ramp nodes and place them in this order. Then connect the geometry position output to the mapping vector input, and connect the mapping vector output to the vector input of the gradient texture, and then plug the color output and connect it to the factor input of the color ramp. So if you want to go back and revisit what I just said, feel free to do so. Then we're going to change the value of the mapping node so that the location equals 1 meter and the X rotation equals 90 degrees and Z equals 90 degrees. After that, we're going to inverse the color ramp colors, so white will be on the left and black will be on the right. Change the color ramp interpolation from linear to B-spline and move the position of the rightmost color to around 0.65 and change it to a gray. Next, we're going to create a math node. Set its function to multiply and connect the color output of our color ramp into the first value input of our math node. Change the second value to around 65. Then take the output value of our math node and input it into the strength of our emission shader. Our node should look something like this now. By this point, your flame should look something along the lines of this. But because it is fire, we don't want to cast any shadows, so let's get rid of them. To get rid of them, we're going to navigate to our Material tab, and under Settings drop-down menu, we're going to change the blend mode from opaque to alpha clip. Now when we refresh our scene by progressing in the timeline, the shadows should have disappeared. Now the next step is a bit complicated because we're going to be adding some drivers to our material. And this is because of the way that we've created our gradient texture by using the position vector. If we were to move the particle source, our flame's material would change because its location is finite, it's set. So to combat this, we're going to make it so that our mapping node's X location is always equal to the Z location of our emitter object. To do this, we're going to right click on the X location value in our mapping node and press Add Driver. We're then going to set the object of our variable var to our emitter. And then we're going to change the type to Z location. Then in the scripted expression, we're going to use the very simple expression of minus var. So just think of this saying -1 times var, which would give us a negative value. Now when we move the object in Z space, the gradient texture should follow closely to it. If you want to keep the 1 that we set on the X location, we can just say minus var plus 1 or minus var minus 1, depending on if you want to set it to even higher or further than that level. The next few parts of this tutorial are going to be about really selling the effect. So in the next section, we're going to be adding some embers. Now this will really help to add to the overall fire look. And it only takes a couple of seconds to do because we've actually already done most of the work for it. With our emitter object selected, we're going to navigate to our particle menu. Then next to our particle systems window at the top, we're going to be pressing on the downward facing arrow just below the minus sign. This is going to give us some more options. And we're going to press Duplicate Particle System. So we now have 2 of the same particle system. Now, if we make any edits to any of the one particle system, it's going to change it for both of them because they're both relying on the same information. They're both the same. So to combat this, we're going to press that little 2 so that it's on its own separate particle system. So it's got all the same values, it's just separated now. So we can change it without fear of changing our original. So we're going to name it to something like Embers or something else distinct. Next, we're going to reduce the scale of our cubes to about 0.03 and increase the lifetime to around 25. With our embers looking pretty good, if I do say so myself, now there's only a few things that we can do to really push it that one step further to really sell the effect. We're going to make it so that our main fire cubes pulsate over time and set our render to render out a glow around our fire. To make our cubes pulsate, we're first going to change the tab to our animation tab. Then select the main flame particle system and create a keyframe on the scale value by pressing I while over it. Then set a new keyframe on frame 4 in the timeline and change the scale value to around 0.14. Press I to lock it in. Now, we can change the timeline to a graph editor and change its view to a modifier editor. Now create a modifier. Now create a cycles modifier and set the after type to repeat mirrored. Your graph should now look like a wave. So because of the 2 points that we created and the after type that we've set, it's now going to repeat in a mirrored fashion those 2 keyframes that we've created, and it's almost like a wave now, it pulsates. Now to create the glow, Go back up to your render menu and check the bloom checkbox. You can play with these settings to your heart's content to get the glow effect that you're really looking for. And there we have it. We have our fire. With a few more steps and all the skills that you need to know, you can create a scene just like this one. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me today. I hope that I have been able to teach you a thing or two about Blender in the context of creating a low poly flame. If I have, be sure to hit that like button and consider subscribing and sharing, as that would help me out tremendously. Thank you so much for watching. This is Hayden Falzon from falzonfantasy.com, signing off.